recording now. Hi, everybody. You got Wayne here from Colorado, and I showed everybody earlier it's snowing here, and we got William in Croatia, and this is William's every other week session that we do, and I'm going to start right out by saying I actually screwed up, and we'll get it fixed, but he is not going to skip and have his next presentation be the end of the month. Instead, it'll be on the 17th. I don't know why that didn't get added, but when you go, and it won't change, it'll still be, I'll just modify the schedule. You won't have to register again. All of you that are here, you're already registered for the whole series. I'll just go in and correct it. But he will be speaking 2 weeks ago from now, today, at this time. And it'll just continue on that basis. And then quickly, you don't have to skip a week. Hugh will be, so those of you that have time now, you'll have time next week. You should come in and listen to Hugh. And then I want to give a little bit of an accolade to William, and then encourage all of you to do the same thing. We have a affiliate program right now, and William is the leader in the leaderboard, and we're going to give some prizes on about every 3-month basis in getting people that have signed up for our Eat Free program. And William, I think you are over 100 now in that, and a couple other people are on your heels, they're catching up. But William's also had some people that have signed up for our elite program, and he's going to have a check coming to him. And I'm not going to tell you guys the number. If he wants to say that at some point, it's fine. But right now, he's got money coming his way. You guys can all have the same thing. And anytime you want to talk more about that, we can discuss it. I don't want to take away his time. I'm going to turn it over to him. It's all yours, man. I'm going to turn my webcam off. Go for it.
Okay. All right. So everybody can see this.
Throw in a 1, everybody, if you see the screen. Yep, they're seeing it. David says yes, Matt says yes, everybody's saying yes.
Okay, then I can start. Okay, so Happy New Year, everybody. I'm a little bit sick, but I'm, healing myself with Slivovitz and, some elderberry tea, so, I might stop and, drink some tea, but, I'm fine, so let's start this new year with the first important thing that it's on everybody's mind is if they don't have land, then it's finding appropriate land. But I would say that this lesson can also apply to people who have land, because I'll go just through the framework of what you should be looking for in land when you're looking for land, and also what kind of let's say information you should be collecting about your site as well. So as I go through through the presentation, if you already have land, then just think about everything that I'm talking about and how you can collect all the data points that I'll be explaining. So we are here, we are still in the research phase, but we've done all the contexting. I'll just go slowly over that, just to summarize. But now we are in finding appropriate land. And next time we'll be on preparing a base map, but now we are focusing on how to find land. So as I said last time, we concluded, or I concluded, and we talked about that. We are facing some big challenges in the future, and in the next 20 years will be definitely interesting time to live in. We are seeing big changes in our environment, in our technology, in our economy, and also in energy as well. So, and all of these changes and challenges are going to bring a socio-political changes that we are already seeing happening. I won't go here, to all of that. Go back to my previous presentation, and you'll see what I said, that we can expect what kind of crisis or what kind of challenges we can expect in the future. But also concluded. The big thing is to understand that the changes are already happening right now, but depending on where you live, you might experience a different, reality or different facet of all the things that are happening. And in all of this, I would say that the scale is a critical factor, because on the global scale, we'll have one set of, movements happening. We are probably going to see the continuation of extraction of fossil fuels. But on the national scales, different countries will take different routes. as we can see already today that US is experiencing a completely different route than, let's say, Denmark. Denmark is almost, I don't know exact statistic, but how much they embrace the renewable energies is much more than what every other country is doing. We're seeing also Germany making big moves, and we're also seeing that different regions in the different regions or states are taking also different routes to adapt to these challenges that are coming, and moving on a more local scale. Different communities are also adapting, and on the household scale, we all are adapting the best that we know. So I would say that with that in mind, I would say if you look at the lower circles, there is a circle of control, circle of influence, and circle of concern. Obviously, everything that is on a global scale, that's a circle of concern, and we can't change much. We can only influence things in our circle of influence. That would be our local community, and we can control things on our homesteads. But I would say that how vulnerable to the crisis, future potential crisis we are, depends on how reliant we are to a current system. So I said last time that we need to build parallel resilient systems and improve our self-reliance, and by doing so, we'll be able to benefit from whatever is coming in the future, and most importantly, preserve our freedom of choice to do what we want in life. And with that, I conclude that no matter what the future holds, we must take a positive outlook and build our resilience, and we can do that when we think about the whole problem as a whole, addressing the problem through expression through our farms. And I said that components of our resilient, if we're going to build our resilient life and our resilient permaculture farms, there are 5 components, and that's community and location, water systems, infrastructure, living systems, or food, and farm economy. And the first one is location and community. I said that community and social capital are incredibly important. We are social creatures, and we need community interaction. We can't be experts in everything. We need others, rely on others for our efficiency. And in creating our household and community economies in our circle of control and influence, we can improve our lives and compensate for whatever shortcomings in a global economy maybe unfold. And before we start with searching the land, I always encourage people to start with defining their context and thinking about their goals. And that's true in every aspect of permaculture. You have to be you have to understand or be clear on what you want, so you'll be able to reverse engineer that, and to have some guidance, to be guided by your goals and vision and everything. So the first thing is sorry, we start with defining our context. Each of us has its own unique situation, and we need to start from there. That means identifying who are all the people involved and who are the decision makers in the process, identifying our resources, making inventory of them, and being clear on vision and our vision and goals. And for this I didn't I used a holistic management framework, but I've also added something that I know from my own life, from personal development. So we're going to go through that. And the first step in defining our context is to list or involve all the people who are going to be in your life, in your project of starting a permaculture farm. If you already have farm, then you have to involve all the decision makers. And in your search of the land, you have to involve all the decision makers, because if there are a decision maker who can weather your decision, then you have to include them. So the decision makers are all the people who are making, of course, day-to-day decisions in your life, in your family, or in your business. And you can't go to the content creation until you have all of them involved in the process, as I said before. And once you have involve everybody in the process, then you go through the inventory of your resource base. And resource base means you first start with making inventory of physical resources, like assets that you have on hand. And here you can list any major personal resources, supplies, tools you have that will support your future project. And you don't have, this is not like you have to make a detailed list of every asset you have, just only a general one. If you have tractor, include a tractor. If you have car, include a car. If you have all different machineries, include that. You don't have to, some of them you don't even have to own, but as long as they're available to you, just make a list. Next are financial resources, and that means what money is available for investing in the project, for investing in your future land, for buying land. And you want to list all the sources of money you have available. That can include cash on hand, or money in savings account, money available from your relatives, a line of credit at the bank, government grants, subsidies, and so on. Again, there is no need to be detailed or to quantify the amount of money. Just name the various sources that you have available. And then finally, think about how much time and energy you can devote to your future property, or to searching for land. If you have land, then how much you can devote to the design, implementation, and maintenance of the landscape. But you wanna make sure that you are honest with yourself to see how much actually time and energy you have. It all depends if you're working full time, if you're self-employed, retired, and it also depends on how much physical energy you have. If you have any potentially limiting personal factors, as health or age, social issues, or anything that might restrict you in some way. Just be sure that this is your inventory. You don't have to be super detailed. Just this is your foundation before we move to discussing how your future might look, because once you have all the people involved and you understand what your physical resources, what your resource base is, then you go to defining your vision. And for this, I use something that I found, for defining your vision and goal. I adapted something that's found from Simon Sinek in his book. I think the book is named Start with Why. This is the golden circle. And there is, why, how, and what. And we start with why, and that means, why you want what you want. Then with how is it going to look like, your life, your future life, and what do you need to do in order to get that? And we'll go through all of them one by one. And first, we're starting with why. As I said, here you want to articulate why you want what you want. This is, of course, your fundamental purpose, cause, or belief for embarking on this lifelong project. So here you want to think about answers to questions like what gets me out of the bed in the morning, what makes a good life, or what do you want to be remembered for. Once you understand, once you know your why, you will be guided by that why. This is going to be your North Star, and when the going gets tough, you'll remind yourself why this all is important. And I won't claim that this is easy. Finding your why or your purpose is not easy. People have issues. I'm happy that I found my why and I know my why. And for people, I'm just going to list some examples what people say, why they are embarking on their permaculture journey and starting their permaculture farm. Usually it's access to quality food, or be connected to nature, or raising a family, or starting a family in non-toxic settings, or it's about their freedom or financial independence. And this is just to give you a general idea, what I actually learned from talking with others, what their motivation is. My motivation is actually, being provided for my family, and, that means my wife, my children, and my, extended family. And, even if you come up with something like, oh, I just want to, self-reliance or self-sufficiency, or I just want to plant a lot of food, I would encourage you to think about deeper and ask why. If you want self-reliance, then ask why you want your self-reliance. And once you ask yourself enough time why, you'll actually get to the core of why you want what you want. And this is going to be really important, because for me, a lot of times I'm working hard and sweating in a summer sun on 35 degrees, and then I would think of myself, is this all worth of what I'm doing? And then I would come back to my why, and I would then remind myself that of course this all makes sense. So I would encourage everybody to start first with their why. It's not easy, but if you are still not sure, then you have to ask yourself what is important to yourself, what is important to you. And the important thing in life give us meaning and happiness. So identify what is important to you, and you'll get to your why. If you have any problems in identifying, you can of course read books, but hopefully this will give you some idea what why should be, how to find your why. And then next we are moving to how. That means your vision, and how do you want your life to be. And you write down or think about the conditions and experiences you desire to fulfill in your life, or in your future farm. And here I suggest that I always think about questions, because questions are really powerful, and it's all about framing the questions. So for finding your vision, I have a suggestion that you ask yourself, so where do you want to be in 10 years? Let's say that we have a conversation in 10 years, and everything that you wish for, is fulfilled. How is that going to look like? What do you want to be getting out of your life, or out of your property? How do you see yourself in 10 years? The thing is, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know what's the best way to get there. So that's like a first suggestion. The second suggestion would be that you think about the perfect day exercise. So think about what would your ideal perfect day look like. Of course, perfect day. Perfect day change and then evolve, but imagine for a moment what your perfect day looks like. What it feels like, what you experience, what your thoughts are, your conversation, emotions. Paint a picture for yourself and be, as detailed as you like. I can tell you that when I was, doing this exercise, then, I created, I didn't write, but, I had a mental, I just, think about how my perfect day would look like. And everything that I described, then I was able to reverse engineer into next step. And next step is, your goals. So here's when you think what you need to do to make your vision reality. So as I said, as I had my vision, then I could go through each part of my vision statement to determine what I have to do, what I have to create or produce in order to make that vision, attainable. And based on that, I wrote my goals. And that was, if I was envisioning myself on my future farm, that means that I needed land. That means that, I had access to land back in Croatia. If I wanted, to to have a food forest, that means that I needed to start food forest. You know, simple things like that. But once you have your vision and you understand what is truly important to you, then you can disregard all the little details that you'll be obsessing and focus on a few, you know, not on many. And in creating, you know, your goals, I would encourage you that you think in terms of SMART goals. A goal is just a visual thinking if it isn't SMART. So SMART means, you know, first S is for specific, and that means what exactly you intend to do. You know, bad example would be start a farm. Good example would be, you know, be more detail about, you know, how your farm is going, you know, how it's going to look like. So measurable, how much of what you do, what you intend to do, you know, what gets measured gets improved. So, you know, be concrete on your examples. Attainable, of course, you know, one, you know, you can think about being unrealistic, but you have to, you know, be sure that you're putting your goals in a sphere of what's realistic for you in your, you know, context. Time frame, have a deadline, and did I? Oh, I saw. Sorry, and relevant. They have to be specific to your, you know, to your vision. So that's the thing, you know. And so now we've gone through, you know, why, how, and what, and that, you know, hopefully this will just give you a framework how to think. So first think about your why, then how your vision, and then what your goal should be. And we always start with that because you have to be clear on what you really want and why you want it in the first place. Okay. So here is the main question. So the question is where to establish a farm. Finding perfect land is, you know, can be expensive, and you don't want to make your job harder. So I'm going to, you know, give you a framework for what you use when you're trying to find that appropriate land. All land has potential, but depends on your goals and what you want to achieve on your budget and everything. That's why we went. That's why I'm encouraging you to go through the exercise first to determine your, you know, your physical resources, your financial resources, your time and energy, how much you can devote to all these projects before trying to find any land. And, you know, because then you'll know exactly what your capabilities are, really. So here is a short framework that, you know, I was developing when I was thinking about this, you know, finding appropriate land. So I would say that, you know, if you're serious about moving to a place better aligned with your, you know, with your aspirations, what you want to do, you want to start with some kind of ranked list of what's important to you in your search. Of course, we, you know, already talk about, you know, goals and visions, but here I'm talking about, you know, we're going to go through the big picture first, all the way to the, you know, from national scale all the way to the site scale, because I think as you are on a big national scale, certain conditions are more important. You know, certain factors are more important than as you go, you know, down in scale. So at the global or national scale, I suggest that you look at the big, important, you know, non-negotiable factors. Here I'm going to suggest that you look at socio-political or cultural factors. What are the impacts of climate change and other hazards to the country and broad climate conditions? You know, for example, your non-negotiable factors can include: I want a stable political environment, you know, a stable ecosystem, affordable healthcare, or something like that. That's a big non-negotiable factors that, you know, can't be as easily influenced in a regional scale. Of course, not in a site scale. So looking then within the country, again, based on your priorities, you want to create a list of target regions to start investigating. Here I recommend looking at specifics of climates, landscape features, and of course community. As you said, community is really important, but you know, community again, we are going on the regional scale, looking at different regions, and then moving, down the scale to the community scale, and then to the specific site location. And then we'll be going into details of what to look at the site, water, slope and aspect, access, and soil and vegetation cover. And for your research, there is two parts of the research. One kind of research is, armchair research, where you can use tools like Google Earth, Google Maps, different, GIS maps, websites, divorce websites, and data you can find like this easily on the internet. But on the site scale, we're going to use, our observation skills and talking with others in the region, and we are going to learn more about, observing the landscape in the reading the landscape a session in 4 weeks, I think. And I'll here just give you a framework, so you know what to look. Once you decide what to look for, what different elements, and sort them in order of importance also. Okay, so the first, as I said, we're looking at general location nation, general location region, and then specific location site. And if you have that option to move nations, not everybody has, but I actually surprisingly met a lot of people who have that opportunity to migrate to another country. And that's why I said, that's why I'm doing this. Some of us have the opportunity to move to other countries. I don't have a lot of money, but I was able to move in countries because I had that opportunity. And some of them can move, inside our countries to different states or so. Some of us can move in the same, within the region. Some of us don't have that opportunity and can stay only where they are. So, but I want to first cover the general location, the nation scale. And as I said, here you want to be guided by important non-negotiable factors such as social, socio-political and cultural, climate change impacts and other hazards, and broad climate conditions. I'll go into all of them here. And the first one is socio-political, cultural, and social. And this means, first looking at the political environment of the country. Maybe it's not, this is like not a rank. This is the obvious, top priority is social, political, cultural, social, when you look at national scale. But, all these factors play in. So obviously political environment, if you want to be in a stable climate, you have to be aware of, what the political situation in the country is. I put a few maps here, so you can see that not all countries are, as stable. So, you want to consider, if you're moving to a country which is, corrupt, you want to, obviously you want to, consider that. You want to look at what the economic situation is in that country, and if you have that opportunity, if you have that knowledge, maybe anticipate, how the economic outlook of that country is going to look like. And, access to healthcare, I would say that is extremely important, because, with no access to healthcare, then, and just being, starting farming, buying land and investing so much money, obviously, this is a huge factor. And, lastly, proximity to family or close friends. So in my example, I would say that proximity to family, close friends, and of course, the culture of the place I'm living here was, for my wife and I, was overriding everything, was overriding the political environment, economic situation, access to healthcare in some sort, because these are the big non-negotiable factors that we were considering before moving. So the next one is, next important factor that I would suggest that you consider is, what are the climate change impacts and other hazards in the potential country of your choice. So, of course, for example, if you look, let's say if you look New Zealand is obviously, it's economically stable, it has accessible healthcare, it has a bright future, green tech future, but it's a very exposed to natural hazards and earthquakes. So this is something to consider, especially if those earthquakes are happening in the areas or in the countries we have nuclear facilities. So these are the big factors. Similar like in, let's say, for example, Italy. So you wanna, or moving, I don't know, moving to Oklahoma where, there are tornadoes. So these are the big factors that will potentially, be influencing your life. So, and I would include here both natural and man-made hazards. So that's why I include nuclear facilities as well. And also you have to understand that as we are expecting the climate change, to get worse, some countries will be winners, as I said last time, and some countries will be losers. I would say that, in a sense that, okay, obviously, more extreme weather, but in a sense of weather, how the weather is going to be favorable for growing crops. So let's say, for example, Canada, if you can see on the lower left image, Canada is obviously going to have experience climate change that's going to be favorable for growing. Canada could become a bread basket, a new bread basket, producing a lot of grains. But that's kind of the framework we should be thinking. How the climate change could be impacting this country, and how how overall the country is able to bear with the consequences of climate change. Obviously, let's say that Western countries are able better to handle the climate extremes because they have it's easier for if you're in America, it doesn't cost you much. I don't know actually how much it costs you, but you have that opportunity to if it's I don't know how many 40 degrees Celsius, I don't know how much that would be in Fahrenheit. You can always turn your air conditioning. But if you're in some poor country and you don't have energy and everything, you don't have that opportunity to turn on that air conditioning. So this is just few things to have in mind. This is of course also the big important factor. And the next one would be of course broad climate condition. The climate will be the biggest influence on your land, on your desired activities, and one of the best examples is plant hardened zone, which of course you can't grow things that are not in your plant hardened zone. Of course, you can stretch it a little bit, but you have to be sure that if you're moving to a certain climate, what spring, summer, autumn, winter looks like. Can you cope with that conditions? Can your crops or whatever you want to grow can cope with these conditions? And think about how much wind, solar access, precipitation, and everything. Just like a broad climate conditions that you can see for this kind of map. Just to get understanding. If you're moving to a tropical country, understand what tropical climate actually means, what you can do or not, and how we're going to experience that. And also climate has a big influence, the biggest microclimate factor has the biggest influence on vegetation. So this is also, you can't, if you go, let's say, to Mediterranean countries, the type of vegetation you can grow there, of course you can, do everything in your little, piece of paradise, but you'll be fighting against the local conditions. So I would say that you can't go a temperate forest type of system in a Mediterranean climate. So you need to understand all the implications of climate so you can better, assess what your potential is going to be in that country. All right, so I'm at 30 minutes. I'm going to stop and I'm going to see if there are any questions. It's a little bit quiet, so I don't know, just let me know if you have any questions. I can stop, I can stop for 5 minutes. Okay. Somebody saying about the links. I'll put the links. I'll put the links in the resources page that I have, and this resources page, I'll put the link next time. But the resources page is it's going to stay the same through all this, all the sessions. So you can always reference what I was talking about here in the in the next sessions, or when I put a link. Okay, so Sonia says that I would like to get the names of the climate maps to further investigate. That's what I'm going to do. I just, what I'm doing here, because these subjects these all subjects are, so extensive. I can't, go actually any deeper into, detailing, studying in details what exactly you should be looking at. Now I'm just giving you a framework what to look for, but on my resources page I'll be able to, let's say, put some links like that. Okay. Somebody, Helena, is saying how to live a permaculture lifestyle. Actually, I'm talking about how to transition. So I'm taking all the steps from, defining the context and finding your land, and then, we go forward. I don't know if you were here from the beginning, but I'm going to go all the steps on actually how to live once you have the farm. This is, of course, the first step, because different people are in different situations, and some of them, and I saw a lot of people actually saying that they want to hear about that, so that's what I'm doing. So, okay, so Justin is asking, what are some good open source programs for doing your farm design? Open source. Well, I'm using, that's the thing, I was using for my design, I was using Illustrator. Of course, that's not a paid one. I can find alternatives for you. Obviously, I'll have to talk about that in the next session, where we're going to talk about creating a base map, and base map is a base for design. So once we have base map, then we are obviously going to put that base map into design program. So I'm going to address that. I'm going to address that later. Okay, let me just scroll back. Okay, Helena says, my why is all 4 of the points I see on the screen, and I know the deeper why. Excellent, Helena. That's great. All right, I think there are no more questions. So Helena is asking, will there be an outline of the topics for different sessions? I'm not sure if Wayne is going to do that, or maybe Mark. I'm not doing that. I'm just, presenting. I have much more. Everything that I'm talking about is a project that I'm exploring on my website. So as I'm doing these presentations, I'm also doing writing blog posts. So I'm not sure if you're on my list or not. I would suggest that you go on my list, and maybe we can continue our discussion there, and I can give you some outlines, some resources and something like that. Okay, I'll then, if there are no more questions, I'll just continue. All right, just give me a second. Okay, so we are moving to general location and region scale, or regional context, or regional scale of research. So here again, based on your goals and priorities, I have different goals and priorities, you have different, so I can't tell you. I'm just going through the framework. So with if you have decide on a country, or if you are if your only options is to choose regions in the country, you wanna make a list of target regions and start investigating or start investigating. And here I suggest that you look at specifics of climate and landscape features and community. And the first is climate. As I said, looking at the global or country scale, you first identify broad climate conditions, and once you move to the region scale, you can look at the specifics, specifics for your climate. And here I'm just going to outline what you should be looking for. First, of course, is as I alluded before, plant hardiness zone. This will, of course, help you understand which plants will most likely survive at the location. Looking at top left image, this is a plant hardiness zone map from USDA, but essentially similar maps are available for different parts of the world. For everything that I'm talking about, you can. That's why I said this is armchair stage of your research. You can do everything from the in front of your computer. Now I'm just outlining what you should be looking for, and I have a whole course about this, and I have variables and everything. But as I said, these are I can't go into exact details for each country. That is just for me. This is just I can focus maybe on a few countries, but for each country you have to do your own research. Also, you wanna gather all the information about the temperature throughout the whole year, rainfall distribution, solar radiation, and this information, as I said, is easy to find by searching online or getting information for free from government meteorological organizations, or just requesting personally from maybe your local councils or councils in that region that you're if you can. But the best chance you have is just searching online. One other thing that you want to consider is what's the elevation that your region is in, because every 100 meters you go up, up the mountain or up the hill or up in elevation, you get a temperature drop of 1 degree Celsius. And that means that as what you're doing essentially is, moving through the climate, zones. So maybe if you are in the desert area and you move up the mountains, you're actually moving away from the equator, into more, let's say, temperate climate. So you need to be aware of that as well. And then looking at the landscape, you want to look at the geographic features, geology and general type of the soil, and of course also biome. A landscape is combinations of all those features in one area of land. As I said, this includes physical elements like mountains, hills, water bodies, rivers, but also living elements as well, such as indigenous vegetation. So the first one is geographic features, and to look at the geographic features. That's why I say this all is easy. Armchair research in front of your computer. You use Google Maps or Google Earth. It's actually simpler if you use Google Map, because then you can switch between satellite and terrain view. You can look at satellite image and of the selected region, and you look at how far it is from a sea or some big lake, because this is going to influence, let's say, your potential site. And you look at are there any rivers, and then you look at the landscape. Is it mountainous? Is it flat? Are there any wetlands or desert? Just a general overview of the region. I, for example, would generally prefer mountainous region. Mountainous region, depending on how high the mountains are, can actually allow for a lot of perennial water supply throughout the year. So If you're closer to the sea, for example, then your temperature change will be buffered by the, a huge amount of that water. So that means, slightly less extreme temperature change. And just a general overview. Also, if you feel inclined to, you can investigate what kind of geology or bedrock you can expect in the region. For example, just looking at, maybe I'm biased, but I'm a geologist. But if you can find maps like that and you can understand them, you'll have a general idea what rocks you can expect in the region. For example, looking at the region where my farm is situated, I could see that from geological map that there is a lot of limestone, and then based on my knowledge, I know what to expect from a soil that is generated on that kind of bedrock, and what kind of hydrology I can expect there. So just looking at these kind of maps, and just looking, for example, also looking at the soil map, also you can see that can reveal a lot of data. And I'm telling you all of this to use all these maps because they give us a guideline or hints of what to expect. Because essentially, first order of influence on plants are bedrock, then it's soil, because soil is made from bedrock, and then plants use that soil to grow. So eventually, essentially, I would say that the plants that are growing are expression of the bedrock. So that's why I'm saying, knowing these all maps, soil maps, geologic maps, specific climate, you can already have an idea what to expect. So maybe you don't have your farm, or you're just looking for a farm, or you already have farm. This kind of investigation can tell you a lot. And then finally look at your biome, because as I'll get there, this is extremely important for the living systems you'll be trying to establish. Biome is a geographically widespread ecosystem, which is characterized by certain dominant types of vegetation, such as tropical rainforest, tundra, savanna, deciduous forest, and so on. This is important because, as I said, we are establishing resilient living systems, and you want to mimic the ecosystem you're in, because this will ensure that you do less work. This will, again, for example, you won't be, you can't, or you can establish a temperate climate forest in a desert conditions, but at what cost? You want to imitate the ecosystem that is around you. And the thing is, for example, if you have your farm, and your farm is surrounded from 3 sides or 4 sides by a forest, then obviously that forest is going to try to encroach on your property. Your property will always want to be a forest. So rather than going against the nature, you want to work with nature and mimic the forest, but you change the species found in the forest that you find unproductive for your purposes to grow food that you want. So that's why understanding biome is important. Once again, that's why let's say it's not critical, but knowledge is this is all the interesting detective work you can do prior to finding your land, prior to going to your site. Okay, so the next is community, and as I said, community is one of the most important factors in trying to establish a resilient permaculture farm. It's going to be really important in researching your potential, what your potential region you should be considering to be living in, and as I said, whatever future holds, it's better to face it surrounded by the people you respect, admire and love, and you can trust. And also, as I said, similar. I always like to, draw correlations with nature. If you're living in a town, in a community, and that community and you have 3 or 4 neighbors all around you. So obviously that community, those neighbors at that town is going to try to encroach on your property with its laws, regulations, with the culture and everything. So you'll be always trying to resist that community. That's why, of course, you want to be, you want to belong to a community. You feel, you'll be happy to be, around. So, for example, a lot of people think that they'll just move somewhere, somewhere and be, lone ranger in a rural area. But I would say that that's a very limiting view, because you'll be missing a lot. And when I say a lot, in a community you have you're all pooling resources, your time, skills, enthusiasm, money. You're able to develop local currencies or barter, and you're working all together, building social capital. And if you are alone, somewhere in the forest, far away from any community, or your potential markets for whatever you'll be doing, your farm economy, you'll be actually, on your own. You'll have to be self-sufficient as much as you can and do everything, basically on your own. So that's why I would say that it's important that you understand that the location of the land and its relationship to both town services and the community affects its potential as much as the natural characteristics of the land. So that simply means that you might have a perfect piece of property, surrounded in the forest, a lot of natural resources, but without a community and far away from any town services. I would say that you'll be disadvantaging yourself big time. And you'll have a lot less opportunity for everything. Services will be more expensive, and you'll be on your own. So on the other side, of course, you don't want to be in the middle of the town or in the middle of the city with your farm. So I would say that embracing the permaculture principle of edge, I would say that a good rule of thumb would be, let's say, a periphery, let's say a small town periphery of a big city that has a decent size, of a town. So you have all the services from a town, but also you have your own peace and you're in nature, and you have of course you have your market. Your market is close. And that's something that I learned from David Holmgren. He situated his farm in a periphery of a Melbourne city, and it's maybe 100 kilometers from Melbourne, from the city, from the central, not from the suburbs. But he's in a small town. He has his 2-acre plot. All the town services. He even has the water, the city supplied water. Of course, he's using it only for certain purposes, but that's what I'm saying. We are not aiming full self-sufficiency. We are aiming self-reliance, and that means still using the technology that is available, but being self-sufficient as much as we can. All right, so let's move to the meat. So based, of course, on your what you want, based on your context, preference, priorities, you make let's say that you choose your region, that you make a largest circle of your favorite region. And to get more detailed about the research, now you look at all the towns that are within your circle, and you find out more about what type of people live there, what is the demographic, what type of culture is in place, what the people living there, what do they value. Think about how would you fit in that community. If the community is full of baby boomers and you're not a retired person, then, and if you're younger, then obviously that's not a community for you. You want to also think about what is the population density. Maybe you want to live near enough, maybe you're young, you have young kids or whatever, you want to live near enough to other people, so you have ample opportunities to socialize, have fun with others, go to movies, concerts, events, shows, parties, and whatever. And that all requires sufficient population density. Also, you want to look at the state of local infrastructure. what is the transportation, health, energy services and everything, what is the availability of services. And of course, you don't want to miss out on legal, looking at legal characteristics, zoning and regulations, because you don't want to buy somewhere, you don't want to buy property somewhere and just to find out that what you want to build, if you want to build an airship, that's not possible. If you want to collect water, that's not possible. So that's a big, huge thing that you should also, be investigating. And of course, size and composition of local economy. You want to make a note of main industries in the population centers, so you have a better understanding of the overall economic pictures, and what are the work prospects in that. Maybe you'll be, in the beginning while transitioning, maybe you'll want to work, have some off-farm part-time job, or also what is market, potential market looks like. Are they capable to pay for your products? So all this is going to give you some idea of what are the appropriate towns for you. Let's say that you gravitate them towards. And I would suggest that you think about your life as a whole. So living and working and playing are all social activities you want in your life. So ideally they should all happen close to each other as possible. So look at the big picture of your life and what you need from life and what you need from your social aspect. So social and of course economic aspect. Okay, so based on your research, you'll have a pretty good idea of the population center, that is most, I would say, most in line with your, your vision of your world and your culture, or whatever you need from the population center. Once you identify the population center, this will be let's say a center that you'll be gravitated towards with your economic activity, with your social activities. Even if you want to accept volunteers for your farm, you want to locate your farm somewhere where those volunteers can come, let's say with public service bus, rather than you driving 50 kilometers to pick up your woofer, and then thinking, then they may be running away because they feel unsafe, spending time with you in a remote location. So I would suggest that you make, you choose your town that you want to gravitate towards, or maybe just a huge city or whatever, but living in the periphery, in the nature, and you start searching for land within that circle. You of course determine the radius for the furthest you're willing to live from its center, and start searching in that area. For example, for me, that's 30 kilometers from a capital city that I'm living here. It's not a huge city, so I plan to gravitate towards for most of my social economic needs to that city. So what I'm doing now, I'm always looking for land, because my farm where it's located now lacks the important aspect, the community aspect, and everything is expensive for me. Everything is expensive, twice as expensive. All the services. It's rather remote without community. That's what I'm trying to say, and that's a huge disadvantage. So that's why I'm trying, I'm always having that mindset. That's why when I'm doing this, I'm also thinking about myself, and I wanna search for land in that 30 kilometers radius, because I know that 30 kilometer radius, that means half an hour drive for me to the city. So that's not huge, I can use even still public, service buses if I need to. People can easily come, and I have a market. So that's what I'm doing. I'm searching land, max 30 kilometers from the city. If I go further, I can go a little bit further, but then, the point is determine that circle, and within that circle, go and search within that area for suitable land. Okay, so as I said, you start your search and then you come to prospective properties. Okay, so now we're going to talk about specific location factors that you should be looking at. First, I would, first we need to talk about one crucial thing, and that's should you consider buying bare land or a pre-built house? I would say that if house is already there, that could be an advantage, but also it could be a huge disadvantage because there is a good chance that it may not be located in an ideal position and not built according to permaculture principles of saving energy, catching and conserving, storing that energy. So what you often see is that most people build their houses on the top of the hill for the panoramic view, but this placement is expensive in energy terms. It's high up the hill, so that means a long trek to get there. Water needs to be pumped. It's exposed to wind. And I would say in most cases, the amount of money you pay for the, that kind of house is, and the quality you get is disproportionate. So of course it's significantly cheaper to purchase a land without existing house. But on the other hand, if you buy, if you want to buy bare land, there is potential to be attracted to cheaper degraded land, and unfortunately there is a lot of land like that all around. And of course, we are tempted with our permaculture skills to practice our restoration and everything. But the truth is that restoration is going to take time, and sometimes it's a decade-long process. So poor quality land, until restored, will be reflected in low and poor quality crops. So I would say that there is a trade-off between buying bare land and buying with house. Usually, we buy with house, and then there is trouble unless it can be retrofitted. But just be wary of those two factors. While you need to consider what you want. If it's bare land, then obviously it will take time until you build all the infrastructure. Obviously, ideal would be that you buy land from somebody who was also a permaculturist. That would be ideal. Okay, so I would say with that in mind, the first thing you should be looking again, upon arriving at your potential site is the risk, potential risk from natural and man-made disasters. This is the climate of the site, so to speak, and you most certainly don't want to underestimate the importance of these factors. Even if the flooding is not currently so severe, with the climate extremes it may be. So that's why I said that if you go to a site, you look for something that's called 100-year flood, line, and that's a potential that that's a flood that can come once in 100 years, and it's usually devastating. These 100-year floods paradoxically happen often and often in our climate reality. But you want to be looking at that. Where is that flood line? Where is the flood coming? And I would say that second, you should look for significant hazards. Are there any mining operations around? Toxic dumps? What is are they maybe upstream, downstream if there is a creek? And you want to also look for if there are any, if you can read the landscape, and we're going to talk about next time, if there are any signs of fire, coming through the property. Is the site prone to fires? So these are all the big risks you want to be aware of before looking for the next thing. And next thing, usually the first thing after all those things is water. So if you're planning anything to grow, water is the primary necessity. Its availability should be a key consideration in your decision to buy a property, certain property. So I would, here I would encourage you to look at the size of the watershed. You can do that from a topographic map, but you can do also from once you're at the site. Just look, what's the topography of the site and how much actually, sorry, that property is catching water. Then you want to look at the potential water sources. If there is a creek, how reliable that creek is. Maybe it's there, but it's only seasonal creek. So next thing you want to look at is the potential for water storage. And I would say here, look at the certain geographic features. If there are certain positions that will, make it easy for you to build a pond. If you don't have to move a lot of soil to build your dam or pond, then obviously you'll be saving money. So the water is first. Next is slope and aspect. Slope is, sloping the land is beneficial. It gives you opportunity to store water high in the landscape and then, using the gravity to reticulate that water. Of course, if the slope is, steep, then that's best left for the forest. But also, flat land is productive, but ideally you should have some slopes. Flat land may become subject to strong winds and flooding, and it doesn't have that potential as sloped land has for gravity fed irrigation. And you also want to look at the orientation of slopes. This is very important because you don't want to end up, if you're in northern hemisphere, you don't want to end up with a northern slope and don't have any sun exposure. I would say that of course you want a south-facing slope if you're in northern hemisphere, north-facing one in the southern, and I would say the best facing slope is the second best. Of course, after that east, but north-facing. If the whole property is just north-facing in your northern hemisphere, that's a huge disadvantage for anything that you want to grow. So next is access to the property, and here I mean whether it's ease of access to property via the access road, and or utilities that you might be considering to let's say connect to on your property. So you want to look at what the roads look like, and if the roads are long, how they're positioned. Ideally you should have ideally the property should have roads on the ridges because there is less erosion, or roads on the contour. You wanna consider also what is the potential cost of maintaining the road. And as I said, you want to consider access to utilities. That this may include telephone, electricity, what is internet, of course, internet. So of course you don't want to end up somewhere where you don't have mobile access for your phone. So you want to consider how much, if they're not there, how much it's going to cost you to introduce them. Okay, so the last aspect to consider is soil and vegetation. Soil is important, but I placed it last because it can be easily influenced by all the permaculture methods that we know. We can build it, we can build it quickly, but also I would say that you don't want to underestimate the value of good soil. It all depends on your goal. If your goal is to realize an income from your farming activities, then you want to make your life easier and find a soil that will enable you to grow with less effort, less water and everything. So, although it's not a pressing issue, the soil, if your goal is generating income, then good soil, of course, is important. And finally, looking at the vegetation, making an assessment, what kind of vegetation is there. And I would say that looking at in relation to the size of the whole property, are there pastures, forest, weedy areas, just to have an idea what are the resources of the property. And with that, okay, we are done. Is anybody still there? Okay, so I almost lost my voice, and grateful that you are still there listening. Obviously, I'll need to drink more Slivovitz to get better. Okay, so Matt is asking, is there a forum to discuss these sessions after the live session? Well, you just go to the EAT community or to this particular session, and you can leave your comments there, and people are there discussing. So if you need to discuss something about this presentation, then you go there and ask questions there. I can answer them, or whoever is there. Okay, Sherry is asking, any suggestion to protect your land from urban sprawl if it is on the periphery of the city? Our area has a history of the city expropriating land from farmers. Well, that's the thing, Sherry. It's not each of us has its own, a unique situation, and some of them are able to, move to a place and find a community that is not going to, have or find land that is not going to be experiencing those kind of problems. But I wouldn't, that's a bigger issue. That's an issue with your, local council, with your city. I don't know way around it. I really don't know way around it. Okay, thanks, Matt. Could you, okay, Gian is asking, could you please give an example of this decision making? For example, what are the deciding elements of your moving from Australia to Croatia? Well, I would say, if you're not, I was born here, my wife was born here, our families are here, our friends are here. The culture, the people that we know, the culture of this place is everything that we are used to this culture, and we have land here, and the nature, we that's why I said about the Byron thing and the climate and expressing we like our climate and we like the nature. We couldn't easily integrate into Australia way of living because all of the things that were important to us were basically in Croatia. But obviously Croatia is experiencing economic trouble, but that's where the permaculture lifestyle comes in. If you are able to make a living from permaculture, if you have access to land, and if you're able to create your own life and reclaim your freedom, and then you don't have to be forced to be in a rat race or living a normal life. You can actually make your own life in country that is maybe not going that well economically. But as I said, there is more factors here. It's not just socio-political or economic. Okay. Okay, so Sonia is saying, I'm looking into a partnership with land conservation organization. They're always looking to protect. Oh, okay. She's just answering that. Well, you have to be, that's what I said, the community is important, the culture of community is important. If you find, the subset of a community that you can belong to and, initiate some kind of change, and then, of course, that's what you're doing. So I would say good on you. Yeah, I would say Helena says that a lot of what I was saying doesn't apply directly to her situation because she already probably owns some land, but indirectly it applies because I said that this is the armchair phase of, let's say, before you start designing. So you want to be aware of everything that I was talking about. Okay, so Keith is asking, do you have any thoughts about setting up new communities rather than moving into an established one? Well, from what I realized, I don't know why, but if you're talking about creating one or making an intentional community, I would say that intentional communities have a high percentage of failure. I'm not sure why, but maybe just a lot of maybe just a structure or organizational thing. I'm much more of a view that you first find appropriate community, then you try to, let's say, integrate your life in there, then going other way around and starting community. It can be done, of course, but I would say it's a harder way to achieve achieve the same goal. Okay, so Pedro is saying, I may have missed the explanation of the ranking of the choice factors based on your goals, but also based on the scale of permanence. Well, I would say scale, of course, on a side scale, I've done I would say that I've done on a side scale, obviously it's a scale of permanence, but the first most important would be your goals. That's why before, I had to put identifying your goals and defining a context first, because then you'll be able to look at a national scale and then move, lower on the scale, move into killer scale of permanence. But you start with your goals always, and then go, of course, water. But there are more factors, as I said, hazards and risk, and socio-political and everything. So before you even get to your property, so these are all community and you can say the community before you get to your land. If you already have and you belong to a community, then find a subset of that community that has like-minded views. Well, thanks for all the wishes that I get better. I'm not as sick as I now sound, but just my throat gets dry and then I cough. But thank you very much. Okay, well, Larry, just send me an email later. Yeah, Carolyn has a good point, about researching carefully. If the city is interested in expanding it, that's a really good That's a really good point. A really good point. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions. If there are no more questions, I'll be ending up this presentation then. Okay, maybe there is one more. Okay, so Jordan is asking, when making a progression towards a permaculture farm, would you recommend first buying or leasing land with an option to expand or move? Well, this is not an easy one to answer. Obviously, obviously the question is, why would you need that option to move, or okay, maybe to expand, maybe to lease, or to lease with option to buy. But I would approach it. I was thinking about it, and I would approach it. Obviously, first there would be community. Obviously, first I would like to live in a place where there is, of course, opportunity for work. Maybe then strategically, relocating to that community and just working and renting there, if you have enough money, renting in your potential, area of where you think you would like to have your farm, and then seeing, maybe just testing ground, and then seeing if you want to really buy. I would encourage, maybe, what you're saying, maybe first renting and then considering to buy before locking yourself in into the area. Yeah, the best answer in permaculture terms is it depends. Of course, because it depends on your unique context, and that's why it's important to go through the, there is a context. There is your context, then there is a regional scale context, and there is site context. So that's why it depends. There are no recipes. You do this, you get this. It all depends on your situation, your site, your environment, landscape, community, and everything. Okay. All right. I'm not sure if there are going to be any more questions, but if anybody wants to discuss this further, or just come send me an email. I'm always email away. We can discuss your your search, your situation, because then I can get insight what people really want, and then write about that or create presentations like this. These whole presentations were, the whole idea for the whole project about this webinar was actually born by just getting some inspirations from people who are saying what their problems are. So okay, I think that's it.